Present-day Archdiocese of Benin was a part of the Vicariate of Western Nigeria, which by 1918 became Asaba Vicariate, with headquarters at Asaba, under Bishop Thomas Broderick as the first ordinary. It was his successor, Bishop Leo Taylor, who moved the see to Benin City in 1943. This is the story of Archbishop Patrick Ebosele Ekpu. It was on the feast day of Saint Evaristus, during the pontificate of Pope Pius XI, during the reign of Oba Eweka II in Benin, 17 years after the amalgamation of the Northern and Southern Protectorates to be called Nigeria. A baby boy named Omo Arega was born on the 26th of October 1931 in the home of Mrs. Podo Eikie, his parental grandmother, to the family of Mr. and Mrs. John Ekpu Uboke of Onuwazi Uromi. His father was a carpenter who learned his trade from the white men and was popularly known as the man who roofs houses with zinc roofing sheets. And his mother, Otekpe, was the daughter of Are Bamme from Agbanogbo quarters of the same Onuwazi village. She was a loving and devoted wife, industrious to the core, who by then journeyed as far as Uzia and environs to purchase clay pots for wholesale. Life was not so rosy for the young family of John Ekpu Uboke, as after the birth of his first daughter, he lost 3 other children in succession after childbirth. However, the baby boy named Omo Arega shut the door against death and opened the way to life, as himself and every other child after him lived to adulthood. No wonder then that his native name, Ebosele, an Esa name which ontologically means the oracle, has worked. Ebosele, which now is a popular name of him who by birth was named Omo Arega, was born out of circumstances. For due to fear of child mortality, Mrs. Ekpu went to her husband's mother in Arue when it was time for her to give birth, and for some time kept the child with her mother for safety. However, with time, and like the baby Jesus out of Egypt, when it was believed that it was time for him to come home, he was laid in the inner room of his father's uncle's house, Mr. Ire Miokale. It was during this time a woman with an alleged evil intention was coming to see the newborn. But before going in to see the child, she discovered that she was having a monthly flow. As such, it was unfit culturally for her to go in. It was this alleged evil woman who gave the name Ebosele. Later on, his fecundous mother gave birth to late Ibade Ekpu, Mrs. Anna Ologbosele, Mr. Alban Ekpu, and Mrs. Oako Veronica. The young Ebosele grew up strong and healthy, and at the age of 7 was circumcised in preparation for formal school the following year. He started his primary education at government school, present-day Egware Primary School, in Uromi in 1939. Shortly after the commencement of his formal education, by divine inspiration, he left his hometown in 1942 at the age of 11 to Benin City, where he joined his elder sister, Omamobo Margaret, now Mrs. Margaret Oko.
In 1941, my elder sister got married to one Abraham Oko, who was from Ukoni and lived in Benin here. And then in 1942, December 16 or so, I left Rome to come and live with them. My father wasn't doing very well at once. So I stayed with my sister and her husband on Idahosa Street. He stood beside the Holy Cross.
He was admitted to Holy Cross Primary School, which was on the premises of the present-day Holy Cross Cathedral. He was later transferred to St. Thomas Catholic School, now known as Exotic Nursery and Primary School, both in Benin City.
When I was the last 1944, I continued my elementary school in what they call a Basaki school now. It was the St. Thomas's School, we used to call it then. And then the seminary, there was a seminarians used to come and teach us catechism. And I remember one Anthony Kende from Abeokuta. I was fond of him because he would offer prizes for those who did well in his class. And I used to win his prizes. And then later, when in 1948, I was living with the seminarians as a boy. This same man was the student who was in charge of their food. So he was one relating with me. And his cousin, Patrick Shomide, I think it was buried just last week in Lagos. He was ordained December 8, 1954, in Holy Cross, in Race Course in Lagos, when we had the first Marian year in Nigeria. He was ordained with one first Benin, modern Benin priest, Bernard Elao, December 8, 1954. So he too was very kind to me. And in fact, he had twin brothers who were living in Ibadan and introduced me to them when I went to Kara, and they kind of became my friends and helpful to me during my student days.
While still in Benin City, he enjoyed his childhood days with friends like Chief Michael Ojomo, JBS Bazwaye, Gabriel Omoregie, Paul Oshodin, Jonathan Oziegbe. Although many of his closest friends are now dead, he recalls with satisfaction the delight of his childhood days.
I think my first teacher was Mr. Mi Ifantuan, and then Primary 1 was an Oraman. And then later in the year, when Mr. B.I. Ade came to replace him. Ade was a tall, handsome man. And later came to learn that was my distant cousin. He's from Eboimi.
The young Ebosele took the name Patrick on June 12, 1942, which was on Pentecost Tuesday, in his admiration of the life and virtues of St. Patrick. On June 12, 1946, at the Holy Cross Cathedral, he was baptized by Father Thomas Batley alongside 86 others. Patrick Ebosele was confirmed by Archbishop Leo A. Taylor at St. Mary Pro Cathedral, Okepadi, Ibadan, in 1951. As a youth, Patrick Ebosele, although not a known sportsman, always enjoyed good music and pleasant singing. Thus, while it was not studies or praying, good music was ideal. In 1948, after Patrick Ekpu completed his basic education at St. Joseph's School, He traveled to Maiduguri to meet his uncle, whom he believed could help him secure a job. However, as none of his choices were in view, they both journeyed to Lagos, and he eventually returned to Benin City that same year. It was at this time his friend, Brother Pius Enoma, whom the Brother Pius Nursery and Primary School was named after, called him and gave him a job in the seminary as a cook and steward, a work he did diligently and was paid 15 shillings a month.
When the seminaries were on holidays, I went. I don't know what happened to Bishop Kelly's houseboy. He was away for some time. So I went to live with him for about 6 weeks to take care of his services and with the cook from where Shuku was with him.
By 1950, with the earlier encouragement and support of the saintly and grassroots evangelizer, Brother Pius Enoma, the young Patrick finally decided to become a priest. He proceeded to St. Paul's Minor Seminary, Benin City.
Becoming a priest for the Archbishop was not too welcome by his family, because generally here in Esa land, when you, even to date, for those who are not Catholics, if you want to become a priest, they'll think your lineage is going to be closed. So that was also what the case was in his time. The fact, he was going to something that he wouldn't have children. They thought that he was going to be lost or something. So you can expect that they wouldn't primarily support him. So he didn't get that support from them. They were not Catholics. They were not Christians like that.
It was not a very pleasant thing. In Nigeria at that time, you have a son, particularly your first son, say he was not going to live a life of celibacy. It was not something acceptable. My father did not oppose me, but he did say, well, if there was a God's will for you, after you have a child, you could go. Because of the example of Father Paul Mechete of AZ. He was a married man before he entered the seminary. There was no formal seminary, I understood, when he was there. When if they knew a priest was good in a particular subject, they would send him to go and live with that priest and then study under him. At the end of that course, they would look for another priest for the next course and so on.
The women, girls, used to spit on the road and say, look at these people. They don't know what they are doing. They are going to be reverend fathers. They are not going to get married. They will spit on the road. But we never mind them. We just went our way, go where we are going to. We took it very casually and simply, and we knew what we were going for. We were going for the priesthood.
At the point in time, although the minor seminary was a school at its neonatal stage, its students were meant to study with those of the renowned Immaculate Conception College, which was then at the site of the incumbent Archbishop's residence on Airport Road, Benin City. However, as the seminary was moved to Okeare, Ibadan, he too left for Ibadan in order to complete his studies at Okeare Minor Seminary.
1950, in January, I had the minor seminary, which was in Benin City then. We spent our first year at the ICC. And ICC, somehow, the government did not allow it to grow. It was okay. Tended to overshadow Edo College, and they were not happy with it. So they kind of disallowed it so that ICC became a kind of preparatory school. After a year, they would go to join their counterparts in St. Patrick's, Asaba. This is the first for the seminary. We go to Ibadan, or Kere in Ibadan. So, 1950, generally we were admitted. Then at the end of the year, those of us who passed went to Okere in Ibadan, and the other students went to St. Patrick's Asaba.
In January 1951, Patrick Ekpu continued to be passionate and zealous in studies. It was here he met Anthony Cardinal Okoje, who, though his junior, became his close friend, and whose home was his home whenever he visited Lagos as a seminarian.
I met Archbishop Ekpu as a major seminary in Ibadan. He was a deacon then. They were on their way out when we were coming in. And you know, like new students, are very, very inquisitive. So, and their class stood out. And we said, okay. And we gave them round heads because they're reverend. You dare not say round there where they are, that they show you read that they're round. And you know what I mean by that. So one day when we were strolling with my friend, Reverend Father Francis Etuboku, is not dead. May so rest in peace. And he sent for me. And he said, "What's your name?" I said, "Anthony." He said, "Anthony what?" And I said, "Okoje." "Do you know the meaning of Okoje?" I said, "No, Reverend." He said, "Okay, you go. That was my first meeting, my first contact with this great man they call His Grace Archbishop Ebosele Ekpu. And since then, he had interest in me. And I was wondering what. So on subsequent days, he called me and who's your father? How's your father? And all whatnot. And he said, "Do you know the meaning of Okoje? The name you are bearing?" I said, "I don't." And he did his hand like this. "I don't know the meaning." He said, "When you go on holidays, tell your father to tell you. And tell your father that you met one man. He called, 'You know my name?' I said, 'Yes.' So that's why you know what. That's how I got to like this man. It took me to himself like a brother. He said, "Don't call me Reverend. Anytime you say, call me Obio." I can hardly speak the language, I don't understand. I said, "What is Obio?" He said, "Just call me Obio." I said, "Okay. Yes, Reverend." And anytime I saw him, at times I forget, I call Reverend. So what did I say you should be calling him? I said, that was how we started. And he got to like me. Because he said, "You know we are from the same place." I said, "I don't know." After not the first meeting. And he told me a little bit of history about the Isha people. Which to me sounded like Greek, because I don't know them. And I was born and bred in Lagos. And people were calling me Lagos boy, even in the seminary. So I believed that was my place. And he made me to understand that we are not from there. If I didn't tell you, I will tell you. And each day that passed, the friendship became stronger and stronger and stronger. More brotherly than he would call it. He took interest not only in my person, but also in my activities. I was a good footballer there. We do on table tennis player. We just do anything I'm doing. If it's around, he takes me looking at it. And I tell my friend Francis, Father Etuboku, "What's this old man looking? What's this old man looking? Why is he so interested?"
By September 1955, at the age of 23, Patrick Ekpu was admitted to St. Paul Major Seminary, Benin City, but the Major Seminary was later relocated to Bodija in Ibadan in 1957. He met a handful of friends here as well. Among his classmates were Monsignor Paul Emoyon, Bishop Francis Olonge, and Bishop Peter Jatao. The seminary is a pious and disciplined environment where a person could be thrown out even for the best of intentions, if not well manifested. Grace, however, ultimately triumphed, and he overcame all the terrifying moments and was successful.
I met him here in Benin. When we were together in the seminary, he was in Bishop Kelly, with 7 Bishop Kelly, and I came in as when the Bishop Kelly asked for somebody to be sent to the chaplaincy in the Nigerian Army. That was when I met him. I know that when I came from Lagos, and we met here in the seminary. We were there together with the students in the major seminary, as a seminary that we all carried to Bodija from here, Benin here to Bodija. So we're very close friends, very close as we're like brothers.
Upon the completion of his philosophical studies, he was sent to Aragba, where he worked under Monsignor Joseph Erame and Father Christopher Chukwuma from October 1958 to June 1959, after which he went back to Bodija. In the course of his seminary formation, Patrick Ekpu received all his orders, minor and major, at the proper time and upon the completion of his seminary studies. And despite opposition from most of his family members, he was ordained a priest according to the order of Melchizedek on July 7, 1963, at St. Anthony's Catholic Church, Uromi. That became the first ever priestly ordination in Uromi land. It was on that same day that late Father Peter Oyemola and Monsignor Paul Emoyon were ordained, all by Most Reverend Dr. Patrick Kelly. It was a day of great celebration and was widely attended by Catholics and non-Catholics. His beloved mother, Otekpe Uboke, died on the 7th of November 1964, 1 year after he became a priest.
My mother was the first of 8 children, and I knew all of 8 of them.
His first pastoral assignment was to Igwobazua as a curate, assisting Reverend Father Vincent Obudu, and later as vicar econom or modern parish administrator to St. Augustine Ebusa from 1964 to 1967. Father Ekpu worked passionately in his place of primary assignment, and even without the means of easy transportation, he was able to move around for pastoral activities. The young Reverend Father Ekpu later approached Bishop Patrick Kelly for financial assistance to buy a car, and his wish was granted, so he bought his first car, which was a Beetle. In 1967, the civil war in Nigeria started, a war that claimed the lives of millions of Nigerians and changed the life of the survivors forever.
My most fond memories of him and some of the most important contributions that he's made, in my opinion, go back to when he was a parish priest. He was a parish priest in Ibuzo, which is my hometown, at the time of great angst. Nigeria was going through really tearing itself apart with ethnic violence, mainly in northern Nigeria, what has come to be known as the pogrom. Lots of people, of course, had relatives who'd moved to work in other parts of the country in the north. My family, in fact, was one of those. When the killing started, people were not sure where people were, who survived, who was killed. We actually came back. My father worked for British Petroleum and was posted to a place called Guzo in what is today's Zamfara State. And there was a tank farm there, and he looked after that area through Sokoto and all of that. The morning the crisis started in '66, my mother was at Mass, and the protesters, or I don't know what we call them now these days, the rioters, invaded the church. My mother's hand was broken, and people began to move back to their hometowns from the north. And, well, we were slightly more fortunate than some because my father worked for a big multinational company. So they sent a light aircraft to take us out of Buzau. And I still vividly recall as the aeroplane was taxiing with us, and how other people were running, and chasing the aeroplane and, their life, And we came home to Ibuza. My father continued, went back to his work. He was now posted to somewhere ostensibly safer, Kano. And while he was in Kano, the pogrom just got worse, and everybody lost contact. We're not even sure if my father was dead, as many people at the time didn't know if loved ones were alive or dead. And at that time, Bishop Ekpu was parish priest in Ibuza. And he was so helpful to everybody. He was the strength in the community. He, liaised with people, got information, as the priest, gave people encouragement. And that is the image of him that remains in my consciousness every time I think of him. Very, very important time in the life of many people. And he was the one everybody could turn to.
My work started in Igobazoa. It was August 1963 that Father Vincent Budu from the Delta was my senior in the seminary. He was an assistant priest in Holy Cross here in Benin. So after I was ordained, I was staying with him to go and open this station in Igobazoa, then called Yekovia Mission District. I was with him for the first 11 months or so of my priestly life. And after that, I was transferred to Ibuzo to be in charge of the parish. Well, Ibuzo, not because of the war, but because the parish was vacant. I was sent there. One Master Stephen Umorie was one that was whom I replaced. Incidentally, he was also the last priest I visited as a candidate after leaving Harvard GCE. I visited in the Washuku before I reported in Benin City for the major seminary. And my first assignment as an independent priest was to replace him in Ibuza. There was a time when it became very hot. I felt too lonely, perhaps not quite certain whether I was safe or not. I decided I went to St. Patrick's College, Asaba, to stay with the priests and brothers there from America. I was there with them. I remember this particular day, September 28. I was saying prayers in my room. I was hearing noise around the building where I was until they came into my room and said that when they were taking me, that they were taking us to Osadebe's school grounds where they intended to shoot us. So as we were going, one American priest who was chaplain to the college decided to follow us. And they were telling me to pull my cassock, but I didn't. And I waited until we were taken to Osadebe's college grounds. Fortunately, the captain, the military man we met there was, he told himself as Captain Aninye. And I said, are you related to Felix Aninye? He said, yes. I said, Felix Aninye was my classmate in ICC. After I heard that, it kind of cooled down a little bit. And then later on, they were still questioning us. Then a telephone came to him from Major General Mwanze. I was an Ibuza man. I never met him, but I knew some of the relatives. And his aide-de-camp was ex-student of St. Patrick's. And after that, they let some of us go. They set us, some of us free. I don't know what happened to the rest. I went back to St. Patrick's, and after a couple of days, I decided to return to Iguzo, where I was, until I left last few days of November 1967 to Igwebe, where I was transferred to, where I spent about 6 weeks before I left for the US for studies. Oh, the people were afraid of, definitely. There was a particular day when I was in Ibuza. The women and everybody were dancing and singing, you know. Then, after they made their own noise, some military officers, Nigerian officers came. That they were in search. And every place in Iguza was quiet. You can't believe. Very, very quiet. You do know the church there, St. Augustine's, the doors and windows were closed. So they shuttered at it because they said it's a practice they don't like to see people that is locked up because they don't know what you are hiding there. So, but in the evening, by the evening when the military equipment came in, the place was very quiet, and they destroyed Colonel Kwechime's mother's house. And she would not agree to get out of their building. So, but they didn't kill her. They dragged her out and then destroyed the building. It was after that that we heard, several days later, that the Asaba community had gathered to welcome them. And after gathering, the men and women and everybody who came to welcome them, they shot all of them down, killed them. It was very pathetic. Because at night you could hear gunshots, and it was not a pleasant experience.
All through the period of his service, from November 1967 to 1968, he served at Igweben from where he proceeded to the United States of America for further studies from 1968 to 1971. While in Rochester, New York, at St. Augustine's Parish, he was nominated co-adjutor bishop of Benin City, and Father Ekpu was asked to return immediately to Nigeria.
One God, Reverend Fathers and faithful of the Archdiocese of Benin City, I have the pleasure to present to you the Most Reverend Patrick Ebosele Ekpu, who by the grace of God has been nominated the Archbishop of the new Metropolitan See of Benin City by His Holiness Pope John Paul II. The Archbishop will frequent himself and the promissory, the holy water now goes around sprinkling the priest, and the lay faithful present the holy water